John Wilner, good friend. He was on the show last week. Pac-12 Commissioner Teresa Gould, who right now only has 2 teams in her league, but in a year she'll have several more as they come in. And she said that as far as the CFP model, she's aligned with the Big 12 at ACC, and she talked about outdated performance metrics. She says, and this is kind of short, that they're in a lane of their own, but she says that they are closer to the Big 12 and ACC. Just hold off on that one for a second, Garrett. They're closer to the Big 12 and the ACC than they are to the rest of the group of 5. Do you buy that, Craig?
I don't know that I do. I don't know that it's really obvious one way or the other, though.
Yeah.
I can see where Oregon State and Washington State were just in that same lane, so I don't think that they've fallen that hard in a year to where they're like suddenly not able to go compete with Oklahoma State.
And I think she's meaning the whole
what I mean, that's the starting point though. But then you add in all these other teams, and I don't think that propels you further up. I do think that dilutes you a bit because you are bringing in a group of 5 teams and not other power conference teams. So. I don't know, man. I'm probably a bit too biased, honestly, to answer this question, to be perfectly just truthful about it, because I do think of the Big 12 in a certain way, and a Pac-12 that's down to its bolts, basically, and that's added a bunch of group of 5 teams, which I know the Big 12 did that, and they're not the same as they were when they had Texas and Oklahoma. So, yeah, they take a bit of a dip, but I don't know. I can see where she's coming from. I'll give her, I can definitely see where she's coming from with that quote. I don't know that I fully agree, but I get what she's saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that needs to be, the party line of
just need to tell everybody.
And also you need to make sure that you have metrics to prove that as it goes along.
Yeah.
That the strength of schedule is similar, that these things are when you play teams, when they do, and especially in the Big 12 and the ACC, I'm sure they'll show when they win those games, very few of those teams. I mean, 2 of them will play a Big 10 team every year in Oregon State and Wazoo will, but the rest of the teams that wind up in that conference will probably not play many Big 12 or Big 10 or SEC games. I don't know about, I can't speak to the Big 12 and the ACC as to what their future plans are regarding non-conference games with the Pac-12. But, yeah, I think that's a good place to say, and that's where they feel they are. And, look, some of their schools were up for certainly up for consideration in the Big 12 a little bit. Boise State certainly tried. They weren't there yet, and there's that. So, we'll see where they are. But I do agree with her that, I do agree, I like where she's at least her head's at when it comes to this.
Yeah, I mean, she's got to be in that place. But, I mean, you have Gonzaga, who's a national championship caliber program, even though they haven't won a national championship. They've been awfully close. So I think in basketball, you feel like they'll help you, hold your weight. I think in football, you have a Boise State, obviously, who made the playoff last year, albeit out of the Mountain West. And then you've got some programs who, depending on the year, depending on, what the ingredients are, might be pretty good. Oregon State or a Wazoo or, someone along those lines. I don't know about the rest of the sports. I can't really speak to those. And I think I probably go with they're closer to the group of 5, but again, I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm probably a bit biased, but I do understand her point. I think that, like I said a few days ago, the Pac-12 has done as best of a job as you could expect given the situation that they were thrown. I know it's taken a long time, and they're still unsettled. I mean, they're still out there trying to get that final team right, but
you are so close to getting the world's most comfortable dress shirt. But you're probably wondering how it fits. This is our trim fit. It has a tailored athletic cut that fits close against the body. It's not I liked that band before they sold out hipster can't breathe skinny, but not DiCaprio flapping in the wind at the front of the Titanic loose. Our shirts come with 4-way stretch, so if you're performing in the gun show that she bought tickets to, you'll have plenty of room. As always, our shirts require no ironing and are machine washable. Now put one in the cart and get to clicking.
MizenandMain.com.
I do think that it will be a fun conference to be a part of, no matter where your standing is in the power scope of overall college football. If you're hoping for it to be like a power conference, then you're going to be disappointed, and you should know better by now. But as a West Coast version of like the Sun Belt, where it's old college football, it's teams that know each other, that are near each other, that are in the same region, that will have good natural rivalry ability built in, baked in. I think that's something that a lot of other conferences now long for as they've expanded, and that's something you've been able to put together. And I think that will aid them in the long run in being a fun and entertaining conference for people out in that area. I just don't know how much the rest of the country is going to care, right? That's where I don't know where you're going to be able to get much of the East Coast caring about Boise, Colorado State or things like that. But that was always a problem anyways.
Yeah.
Like, that's always been an issue. So just how much more of an issue is it when you can't input a USC on occasion or an Oregon or things like that? So it's a watered down pack. I don't mean that to sound negative at all. And I think so long as you're not too consumed with competing for national championships and being considered like in the top level, and you just appreciate it for what it is, I think you'll really enjoy it. As it's just being a college football league that makes a lot of sense when a lot of these leagues don't make as much sense as they used to.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. So here's the next topic here. The at-large model rewards on-field performance, and after 15 months of the CSP, it's clear each commissioner advocates for their stakeholders. The metrics show stronger alignment with the ACC and Big 12. With her, she said, and outdated historical metrics no longer reflect today's changed marketplace. And about those metrics, that's where I really wanted to get into. We had like 4 quotes that we kind of condensed here, but I think that's another thing that every conference commissioner needs to say, especially given that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to put all of these things, and they're going to focus on things that happened before this playoff model existed, before NIL existed, before the transfer portal existed. And that's all well and good, and they've succeeded in that era, and they're succeeding in this era too. But I don't think that it's not fair to compare them at all because of the player movement that's going on right now.
Player movement, a team movement, conference movement. All of a sudden you're the Big Ten, you're counting these championships from teams that were only in the league as of a year ago, and the SEC and everybody else doing, the same thing, domino effect. So, I think that it's been interesting to see 4-4, 2-2, 1 look like such a for sure thing, and now you've got multiple leagues, multiple people professing their desire for the 5-11. And did everybody just fall into Greg Sankey's trap ultimately? Yeah. Or did he lure everybody into the trap? I don't know. But obviously the Big Ten's got to start feeling like they're sort of on an island now at this point, because everybody, all the smaller leagues, and I don't mean smaller derogatory, but they're all saying they want 5-11. They want to prove it on the field. SEC knows they'll get like 7 teams in every year. So they're like, that sounds good. And the Big Ten's like, well, what about what we agreed to, which is what we've discussed at length. So, I'm with the 5-11. I understand the risks, but I think if you're like the Big 12 specifically, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Like, neither one's a perfect solution for you. You get 1 extra team guaranteed, but I also believe everybody's like, well, last year, and I know I've said this, last year you only had 1 team in. Yeah, but that was 1 year. Yeah. And I also see the same people say, well, last year was a down year for the SEC. I think it was kind of a down year for the Big 12, honestly, as well. Everybody beat up on each other. Now, if that remains the case, then you're probably going to screw yourself overall. But if there are years where if BYU doesn't slip at the end, or somebody,
there could be years. Let's just take BYU. Let's say BYU and Arizona State and Tech, all 3 are fantastic,
right?
And they don't play each other, or like it doesn't all overlap, right? Because of the 16 teams, you could have 3 teams that are 11-1. And then you're going to tiebreakers, and then you're going to have 3 teams in.
Yeah, which is what you're hoping for and what you're banking on happening. So if that does happen, then yeah. But I think, if we're going to say, well, last year was a down year for the SEC, well, I mean, you could say that about conferences at any point in time. They've all had down years, and that's not a predictive factor. And like, what if another year, this year's a down year? Then what? So yeah, that's not really an exact science type of argument. And I think there will be years where, BYU doesn't slip at the end, or Arizona State's even better than they were. And you can get 2 or 3 teams in there because of the fact, like you said, they don't all play each other and eliminate each other. But I'm with her on the metrics thing. I think leave it out of the hands of just human beings and just solely computers. There's a good mix that can be had. But if we're going to be using top 25 rankings and FPI and some of these, I don't like that idea. I think some of those aren't exactly the best tools, not maybe those specifically, but things like, I don't think we just need to use everything and just say, oh, well, the graphic looks good, so it makes sense. Like, I think there needs to be an actual dive into the information and not just take those things at face value as though they all mean the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I do think there are some polls, they look fancy, they look nice, but you really dive into them and you're like, this isn't something that should be deciding playoff spots or this thing's like 50% right. What are we doing putting this in there as far as the information goes? So I think they need to be smart about what they do use if they're going to use, calculations.
They should use nothing that comes from any of the media stakeholders.
Yeah, preseason stuff.
They should use
preseason poll shouldn't matter.
Yeah, none of that stuff should be used in any metric because then, the stakeholders for all the different conferences can can throw in things that weight it on there. Like they don't know how it's going to work out in the end. They just know that they can weight things. And I can just speak to it personally from, when we were in radio, Craig, the way that they do radio ratings through a company called Arbitron is the biggest scam in the world, right? It's because they have all these weird weighted metrics that you can kind of push, because of the amount of people of certain walks of life that turn in diaries and the way that they do it. So you could get 50 diaries of one kind of person, but because they're unweighted, because they get the most from this kind of person, then one person can equal those 50 diaries, right? So you can weight things however you want statistically to push it to where you really want to go. And so that's just kind of an example of the outside world of where it gets. So yeah, it needs to be based on those things like we talked about with the hockey yesterday of your opponent's win percentage, your opponent's win percentage. Are you beating good teams? Are you beating good teams who also beat other good teams? So that means all right, you've really, fought through because this team was proven on the field and those things. And then you take those numbers and you get, you get your 5 that you're automatic. And then out of the next 11, you'll probably have, on a max year, 20 teams that could fit any kind of bill. And then that's where the committee comes in and sorts out some of it through the numbers. Right? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how they need to do it. I don't do well with numbers, but I think I've said 100 times now that some combination of a committee and computers would be the right thing to do, not one and not the other. There's got to be a way. There's a lot of smart people out there that can come up with a non-biased way to put in various formulas and come up with the right computer stuff. And I think if you don't give the human beings too much of an opportunity to maybe go a certain way or have a certain bias, you put good information in front of them, the information will speak for itself so long as it's not tainted, which is the whole point. That's why, preseason polls and things like that should be as far away from this as possible. But yeah, there's a way to do it, man. Let the nerds figure it out. And I mean that kindly. And let's get to the next step of this whole thing. But I do agree with Teresa Gould in that the Pac-12 is unique. And I think the more you dive into the quote she actually said, she's not saying that they're one or the other. They're kind of in the middle of the Group of Five and the Power Five. And I would agree with that. I think they are kind of in a unique spot on their own because their situation is so unique. And good luck to them. Still wondering when they're going to get that final team, as I know Pac-12 fans are, but I think she's done a good job, it appears, so far, and looking forward to seeing Texas State or whoever that ends up being that next announcement for them, and then seeing how that league plays out here over the next few years. But, 5-11 has suddenly become the popular thing, and so I wonder if we're headed there or if the Big Ten and SEC come to an agreement where we're back to the 4-4-2-2-1. But hopefully either way we get to an agreement sometime soon.
When you said Greg Sankey lured everybody into his trap, I do feel like that could have very well
I feel like that with everything he does.
Because he, from the very beginning, didn't really want any automatic qualifiers. He even said, I compromised on the automatic qualifiers for conference champions because, and I've said this for years, Greg Sankey knows that if you tell them that he's going to get 4 for sure, this many for sure, then there's a chance he may not get 8. Because once you start filling things, then that you have to fill those things. When he's going to feel in certain years, he would say they went to the AQ model. He's going to have a time where if they did that, they'll get their 4, the Big Ten will get their 4, everybody will get theirs, and then he will go on television and cherry pick why even the Big Ten may be lucky to have some of the teams that they have in.
Everybody's sitting there screaming at Brett Yormark saying, "You're a doofus. What are you doing? You could have 2 guaranteed teams. Most year you won't have 1." I mean, that might be correct. Again, it's a perception thing. It's clear the reasoning. It's not a mystery as to why they're going the route they're going. It's been fully explained at this point that they know it's a risk. But yeah, the SEC looks at it, whereas people are saying, Big 12, take your 2 and love that you even got 2. The SEC is getting 4. They're saying we're only getting 4.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in the 5 and 11, you can get like 8 in there in certain years. So yeah, I would think that he's probably feeling like a hog and slop, that everybody's starting to kind of turn that way towards 5 and 11, because he would stand to benefit as greatly as anybody. Yeah. With just open-ended 11 at-large spots to be determined, depending on how those are determined. Again, that would go back to some combination of computer and committee and all of that. I mentioned preseason polls. I don't like top 25 polls. Those are kind of funky, I think. So it would really be the devil in the details of how they go about those computer rankings. And so I'm glad that there's people like Teresa Gould and whoever else that are going to have their eye on that exactly. But yeah, I think that Sankey's got to be happy with the developments of the last week. After being like Mr. Public Enemy a week ago, we haven't heard a peep, at least as far as I've seen, and things seem to be going in a direction that they would be happy with if it ends that way.